My name's Karena, and this session is designing a process that gets things done. And I'm going to be providing an overview of some workflow ideas, some things that I've done and implemented that have worked for us. There have been a lot of excellent talks today that have hit on similar sides of this. I think I have a couple of other perspectives I want to add to the pile for you to think about and take and consider for your own workflow and your own project process. But I know we've hit on this a lot. Again, my name is Karena from Jacksonville with Open Sky Web Studio. I've been here for the Orlando WordCamp. This is my third year and my first time speaking here, so I'm very, very excited to be with you guys today and want to just jump on in. Want to talk specifically a little bit about process. When I decided to go out on my own and begin freelance web development back in 2009, there was a short phase in there where I was either going to be a web developer or I was going to be a professional organizer. And it really could have gone either way. And yes, that's a thing. Professional organizing is a thing with a whole official national organization and everything. And it appealed to me greatly. And most people I know who live in the crazy design, chaotic world, they're like, you want to do what? You want to organize for a living? I just love it. I love structure. I love process. I love organization. I love where everything has a place. Every process, I'm a list maker. Everything's got a checkbox. That's just how I'm wired. And so there's a real appeal to that. So when I went into web development, I've been doing it since '98, but once I really jumped into it on my own and began doing specifically WordPress projects, I was hungering and searching for something that could be a repeatable process. And I'm of the opinion that anything that happens to be done in your process that is done multiple times should become systematized. If it is something you find yourself repeating, create a system for it. Whether that system is simply a checklist or something more formal with tools and workflows and collaboration techniques. Think, what is it that I do on a project-to-project basis that gets repeated? That should become a system. There's some great benefits to using systems and process. One is you can provide predictable costs, timeframes, and outcomes to your clients. If you've done it before and you know what it's going to take, it's scoping and quoting and estimating is going to become quicker, it's going to become more accurate, and it's not going to become this burden that often it is. Like it used to take me forever to write a proposal because I just was like, woo, I don't know, this could go anyway, And after a while, when you start repeating yourself, you know what to expect, and there's great benefit in that. And our goal is to get our products, our projects to market live faster with more features, with better quality, stable, done right, happy clients, happy referrals, life is going well. And that happens when we are starting from the very beginning, knowing what we're getting ourselves into going on into the project. That only happens when you have process in place. And a lot of times as developers or as designers, we just don't want to bother with process. We want the Wild West. We want to have all the options out there. Now, I'll just make it up as I go. I got my creativity juices going. And clients, if you're doing, that's great for your personal projects, but when you're doing client work or or projects that have time frames that you want to see pushed live, that chaos really can't exist and be effective and remain profitable as a freelancer, as an agency, as a company. Another benefit is it makes you an expert and it makes you able to manage expectations. So when you speak with your clients and they ask for, I want one of those brand new, really cool Flash websites. And you can come in and be like, okay, let me walk you through several other options, and here's why, and here's how, and here's what the benefits are going to be, and here's I've seen it work, and here's some examples. Because you have process in place and you're doing something that's repeatable, clients like that. Another thing, your past projects are not quite so scary when you have to go back and do maintenance on them. Anybody ever had that situation where an old client called you up and you saw the number on the phone and you're like, oh, and you're immediately trying to sell them on a redesign and all they wanted to do was tweak a few things? Sometimes our old projects are like, putting together a portfolio and you're like, that one's not going in my portfolio. If you have repeatable processes and you are using repeatable plugins and technologies, and you are installing it in a similar way each time, and you are following conventions and best practices, when you open up your old projects, even though you may have newer stuff that you're doing for other people, you're not so scared. You know what to expect, what is in there. You're not like, they want me to tweak the slider on the homepage. Why does it even have a slider? And you're, I don't even remember how to get in there. But if you had a process in place at that time, then you will know this is what to expect when I go into it. And so even maintenance becomes less painful. Another great benefit for process, and this is where I'm at as an agency, is it gives you room for growth. If you can document, if you can outline, this is how we do it here. This is what our quality level is. This is what our deliverables look like. This is the tools that we use. Then you can plug in somebody. You can say, it's all documented right here. You go through training, you walk with them during their startup phase with you, but then you can turn them loose. And if they don't work out and they leave or they move on and go to greater things, you don't have to worry about the stuff that they worked on is so far afield that you can't even recognize it or pick it up yourself, because they followed the conventions that are in place for you as an organization. And so therefore you can grow. That scary, if I turn loose control, the whole project's just going to go wild and I won't even recognize it at the end. That will be eliminated because there's convention being followed within your organization. I recently tasked somebody that I was just using on a contract basis. I said, put together this document for me, and just write it. I don't have time to talk about it. Just, you got this. And I just threw it to him like that. Really bad project management approach. And so he did it, and it came back, and I was like, can you change this, this, and this? And he's like, you know what? I'm done freelancing. I took a job over here. I'm done. He handed it back to me, and when he did, I realized he had done the entire thing in a tool set that I don't even own. And so I couldn't open it, I couldn't edit it, I literally had to rebuild it and start over. Now, how inefficient is that? There's no room for growth if I let that happen. My better approach on my end would have been to say, here's the tools that we use, this is the list, I got you plugged in, even a consultant, even if you're using people in a freelance independent consultant way, this is the conventions I want you to follow, and this is how I want you to deliver it back to me. And when it came back, I know I can go in and edit it. I can task it on to somebody else for continued work. It's all within control. So if you want to grow, and you're going to need to, because we're either growing or we're dying, process is going to help you a lot with that. Be a curator, and this is what I really want to convey today, that we are the curators of the best practices. We are the curators of the best that's out there. That's what a curator does. So as you've learned this today and tomorrow about plugins you may not have heard of, or things that people are using, or methodologies, you say, okay, how does that work for me? How does that not work for me? Where does that fit in? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly? And literally, I maintain a list of preferred plugins, which I'm sure you probably do too. But then as you continue to develop good practices, you're also curating the best practice. So, when responsive first started coming around, now it's like the thing. It's got to be responsive. But, it wasn't but a year ago, 2 years ago, when you had to convince a client that they needed a responsive website instead of a second website that was actually, mobile adaptive or whatever. And so you, as the web developer, would need to say, what is this new thing that's responsive? Stay on top of the research that's out there. Continue to read new things and what's coming down the line, so you can have those conversations as the expert with the client and say, okay, listen, responsive is going to be a better approach. You're only maintaining one site. It'll automatically resize. We don't have to do double the development up front. All your reasons. And that only happens when you are acting as a curator and you can maintain that trust with your clients. The idea here is, and you've heard the phrase, a rising tide lifts all ships. We as a community have the responsibility to maintain the excellence of the community. If you demand excellence of yourself and your own agency, the entire community will begin to lean towards that excellence. And all the best practices, all the products, all the plugins, all the talks at WordCamps, things like that, everything will continue to get better as we individually are getting better. And so I wanted to start by putting that out there, that from a high level view, when you think about your process, is it chaotic? Is it non-existent? Is it completely you-centric? Or is it team-focused, even if it's a team of one? With the idea that it won't always be a team of one? Is there documentation involved? Is there somewhere written down, if clients are providing you access to different things, do you have a proper way to maintain that? Things like that. I worked for an agency when I first, back in like the late 90s, that was for, mostly design focused, and because the internet was way new and we were just getting started with internet. And they were very image focused. And I always was trying to figure out, what are we doing here? Like, there's like only 10 of us, and we're acting like, we're a large marketing brand agency of 200 or whatever. And I realized that they really bought into the image and the perception that to act bigger than you are. And in some ways, that felt disingenuous, and I didn't like that. But in other ways, as an independent person at this point, I like the idea of acting professional and excellent and being a curator of what I do, even if I'm small. And if you think of yourself in those terms, that I'm just a freelancer, I'm just doing this on the side, I'm just this little guy doing this, it will reflect in the quality of work that you put out and the types of approaches that you take. But if you think of yourself that I'm part of a large community, we provide excellent quality WordPress products, we provide excellent quality designs, content, we follow best practices, we're not cutting corners. The entire community will begin to rise with that. And I just wanted to put that out there for our thoughts. Okay. When you design a process, you will need to build in time and place to review that process. It is not something, and I ran into this with a section of my process 3 years ago. I did tons of research. I had spreadsheets comparing different options. I picked my option. I built it into my process. I added client sites to it. And when I was about 30 or 40 sites in, that company I was using just kind of lost quality. Like, they got bought out. I mean, things are just... And I realized, and I'm like, why do I have to look at this again? I made this decision. I did all my research. But what I failed to do in that situation, what I've since learned, is I have to annually, biannually, every few months, however it needs to work for you, review the process. Is this still the best tool? Is this still the best option? Because this web world we're in moves much, much faster than this set it and forget it. So I just want to put that out there. If you are going to build a process, in your natural way of doing business, make sure you build in time to review that process. Give yourself permission to play, try new things, and see what happens. This is something we've all seen before when it comes to adopting new technologies. And I want to talk a little bit about where we fall on this scale. How cutting edge should you be? How cutting edge should your product offerings be? For you personally, I say go for it. If you love being an innovator, you love being early adapter, you are up front, the new whatever that came out yesterday, you are standing in line for it in your sleeping bag, you are ready to go. You're the first one. We need those people. We need that to happen because that drives innovation forward. And this might be controversial, I put this out there to you when it comes to client work. You have to assess with your client the risk and the cost that it takes to be on the front edge. Because not everything works that comes out with rave reviews and it's going to be awesome and you just wait and see. And not to mention there's a learning curve because it is so new and maybe it's the first time you've done it, or maybe there's not a lot of resource for research and understanding out there. So how cutting edge should you be? Ask these questions. Is your client okay with the high costs and the high risk to be innovative? Are they really okay with this, or are they a business that just wants to go live with solid, functional website? What if it doesn't work? What if we try something, but the return on investment doesn't pan out? What's your client going to do then? Think this thing through with them. Can he pitch something that doesn't work and start over with you? Is there room in the budget for him to try again with something else, or is he going to leave you and you lose the client if you try something risky? Can you know ahead of time exactly what your tools or what a particular plugin will do? And can you manage the client's expectations on cost, time, and features? I recently purchased a premium plugin. Like, I did all my little research, I read the reviews, I looked at the features, I played with the demo, I did everything I could beyond buying it and trying it. And finally, I thought I had 3 or 4 clients in mind that this would be perfect for, and so I bit the bullet, but I bought it and tried it before I pitched it to the client. I took that risk as a company, so I paid for it, I played with it, and there are so many problems with it that I'm like, I can't resell this. I can't use this. And so I took the loss. I took that hit. But that was me taking the risk for my clients. Sometimes you have a client. I have a client right now who he's crazy full of ideas. He calls me literally 3 mornings a week. I went on a run last night and I was thinking, and I'm like, oh Lord, here he comes. And it's not small things. It's like, so if we do this and this and convolute that and that, and like, he just comes up with the craziest stuff. And I'm on the more conservative side. I'm like, no, wait, we don't know that's going to work. But he wants to try it. So okay. If you want to try it, I will manage your expectations. This is what it's going to cost. It may or may not work. I provide no guarantees. Do you want me to try it? Well, do you think it'll work? I won't know until I start. Do you want me to start? And he'll often say yes. But he's a rare breed. Most of my clients aren't there. And so you judge your client. Can they handle the risk? My clients, I tend to say, I try to be here. I don't want to be down here. Like my father-in-law, we're getting him off of a flip phone next week, so it's a big day, okay? I don't really want to be here because I'm supposed to be a curator of the best. So I do want to be ahead of here. But if I'm up here with client work, it gets kind of sticky. So I try to live here. So where are you? What type of services do you as an organization offer? And I just want to put that out there. Most of my clients, they want tried and stable and elegant. They talk innovation, but they were not ready to live in that sloppy, chaotic realm. They're just not. They think they are. But it's up to me to help judge that with them. Does that make sense? Okay, I want to hit on a couple key areas of kind of maybe some tricks on how I do things. When I first went out on my own, I said to myself, the days of me coding everything from scratch are officially over. I'm getting too old for this. I mean, maybe that's what you love, but for me, I just wanted things to work. And so I didn't want to start from zero. I didn't want to take a baseline and just, clean slate. Let's go. What do you want to do with this project? Because it's just too much. I wanted to move faster. I wanted things to do more than I would be able to pull off when I was on my own. I've got some people helping me now, but at the time it was just me. So I focused on, it became a value of my company to focus on integrations. I wanted to find great technologies and integrate them, make them all play nice together. And because I had experience in such a wide variety of things, instead of being pigeonholed and like, I only know PHP, don't talk to me about anything else. I mean, that wasn't me. Like, I know a little of this, I know a little of that. I can make it all play nice together, even if I'm not like the superstar PHP developer out there. So that's kind of been my focus. Here's my rule of thumb. If you need it, somebody else needed it first. And that's probably because I'm not up there in the early innovators. This is probably why this works for me. But if you need it, chances are there's something out there that if it doesn't do what you need it to do, it can at least launch you in the right direction. Either you can see it going in the right direction, now we need these 3 more features, or you can say, okay, I can take this with this and this with that, and I can make them play together. The trick is to do it in such a way that you don't look like a hodgepodge at the end. But if you need it, it's probably out there. So here's what I recommend. Become an integration ninja, for lack of a better word here. that requires, and these are the primary skills that I found that I've needed to continue to cultivate and develop in order to do this. Some basic comfort with CSS and HTML5. You got to know that. Because if you're going to integrate several things together, chances are the built-in style sheets are not going to be the same. So you're going to want to override those. You're going to want to make it look seamless on your site by getting into your developer tools on your browser, right-click and inspecting and say, what is the ID for this thing? Know how to read that HTML, and for most of you, that's no-brainer. If that is something you're not comfortable with, I would absolutely say start there. To get comfortable there, know what the document structure looks like, know how to line it up with the CSS, and then know how to override it. Know how to clean that mess up and make it look like it was there all along. It was all part of my website the whole time. That goes right into have some basic coding skills. Basic. Like some of you are over here, and that's awesome. But if you learn some jQuery, learn some JavaScript, learn some, JSON. Like I just did an integration with a company had a proprietary internal calendar system. It had an API. It had some forward-facing things, not a lot. It was pretty old school, and I, figured out, okay, if I wrote just a little JSON, I could get it to integrate, and no one could tell the difference, and we didn't have to integrate a separate plugin for that. So some basic coding skills come in handy, which takes me to be a pro Googler, because that's 9 times out of 10 where you can get some great resources to do it. See, somebody else already did it, remember? So if you Google, how do I make this and this and this play together, and you become really good at following through, whether you're in the WP support forums, there's some excellent information on how to make one tie with the other. Look at coding blogs, support sites, Stack Overflow, things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of resources out there. I just tend to lean on Google as my starting jumping off point, because it indexes so well, so many of the different things. Here's some examples of integrations. Social integrations. A lot of websites require social icons, social sharing, feeding from the WordPress site onto social platforms. There's a plugin that we use for that. Commenting. There's a lot of social integrations that need to look seamless on your site and not like just added on as a Band-Aid on the top. E-commerce, payment services, inventory systems, fulfillment systems. These are types of things that you can build some beautiful integrations with. Communications. Are you managing email lists? MailChimp's one that's been mentioned many times, and we use it extensively. Well, how do notifications work? Do you need a chat on your site? Do you need forums? These types of communication tools, you can build some integrations. Instead of just plopping it on as another tab on your site, build it elegantly, override the style sheet, and see if you can't make it look seamless. And data, I mentioned pulling from calendar, whether you're pulling table data, filling out forms, things like that, how you're managing the data. There's just some integrations. There's a couple of integration tools, if you don't want to get into the code, that I've used, Zapier and IFT. They each kind of focus a little bit differently, but you can get this to play with that and this to play with that. They're really cool tools. If you haven't fiddled around with them, take a look. I like those. All right, let's talk foundations. When you're going to start a new project and you're going to start from scratch, which we don't do, we start from somewhere and we build upon it. What is that somewhere? What's the foundation? First thing I want to ask is, do you have a sandbox? Where do you play? I installed a subdomain on on our account, just Sandbox, and I set up WordPress install. And once it was all nice and set up the way I wanted it, I created a backup, and I just hold that backup, and now have at it. We'll install stuff, play with stuff, move stuff around, delete stuff. Here's the thing. All the plugins out there, some of them don't clean up well after themselves. Is that putting it nicely? You'll open your database and you'll see things like, what in the... And you realize it was a plugin that you tested only months ago and decided not to use and deleted, and then months later you find out you still have tables in your database. Caching, I open your htaccess file and you're like, what the heck happened here? And it's a caching plugin that you tested one time, and it added this much code in there and forgot to take it back out when you uninstalled it. So I don't even play on dev sites. If you're going to develop for a client project that's eventually going to go live, that dev site is only a dev right now. It's going to become a production site. And you want to be able to back that up and however your process is to migrate to live. When you do that, you don't want to have all this residual, I was trying things out stuff in there. Try things out on your sandbox. And if you don't get up and it starts being stupid and then you just want to start over, nuke it with your backup that you kept and start clean again. Because it's just a sandbox. It's never going live. Then when you have a solution that you are going to build upon, then install it in your dev site and begin working on your client work from there. Which brings me to my template site, which is even more on lockdown. I have a starter site. It's a whole site. It's not even a starter theme. It's a whole site with all my preferred settings, all of the time zone and the date setup and the starter frameworks that I use, and if there's certain plugins that I know, and I'm not talking about every plugin that I love, but the ones that I know will be on every site, which is a rare few. But those are pre-installed, they're maintained on their updates, everything's nice and clean. I start there when I start a new project, and when I start a new client project, I clone that. And this is not my sandbox site. I'm not installing and testing things. This is just my pure site. I have a maintenance plugin installed there that you have to have a login to see and all that stuff. So I'm ready to go. I even have default proofing users installed so that when I need my clients to log in and proof, I already know. Here's your proofing login. I don't have to remember to go set that up. Everything is exactly as I want to start. So where do you start? Consider having a template site. And you can do this locally if you develop locally, or you can do it, I do it on a subdomain just because that's the way we like to do it. And then the next thing, I'm a big fan. The day I discovered WordPress frameworks was the day my world opened up. Because, like I said, I don't start from zero. And I was doing a lot of things repeatedly. I was designing the pagination repeatedly. I was theming the comment section repeatedly. I was doing things repeatedly. That makes no sense to me. Why would I repeat myself? Frameworks get a lot of that dirty work out of the way. There's some good ones out there. I am a Genesis person. I love Genesis. I'm now Genesis. There's some other good ones out there, so I'm going to talk about Genesis, so you feel free to use which one works for you. The thing with Genesis is it provides excellent security, and this is what all good frameworks should do for you in some form or another. I find it to be lightweight and fast, and ready to go out of the box with really strong SEO characteristics that are absolutely essential. Also, it's all mobile responsive at this point. And again, the previous session mentioned, or a couple of sessions ago mentioned, all our sites are mobile responsive. I'm the same way. It's kind of not an option at this point. So shoot, I'm not starting from scratch on that every time. If I have a framework that can get me out the door and I can just build on top of that, that's the way I'm going to go. And so it just provides that quality, excellent foundational code to jumpstart you. Now, the framework works in a parent-child theme scenario. So I would recommend to you to consider, if you aren't already, use the child theme approach. Don't buy themes or take themes that are pre-existing and then just start hacking them to death. If you're going to make revisions and changes, use a child theme model and right on top of the existing parent theme. And Genesis in this case acts as the parent theme. There's a lot more I could say about Genesis. On my website I did a talk at WordPress Jacksonville, our meetup a couple months ago on Genesis, and more specifically it's posted to my website, which will be up at the end if you want to know more about that. And there's a lot of people who are big fans of it, and that's the other thing, it has a really robust community and good support, so I would encourage you to look at that. If not, look at some sort of framework. That it might be a great solution for you. If you're more hands-on, hey, I'm a theme developer, I'm starting from scratch, at least start with a starter theme, which is different from a child theme in that you're actually editing the starter theme, you're going with it, you're running with it, but it gets you out of the gate. There's a couple. I personally, like I said, I'm a framework person, so that's what I use, but I just wanted to make mention of a couple that are out there that you might want to take a look at, and I know there's others as well. Okay, good plugin, bad plugin. How to know, how to determine. Like I mentioned before, we maintain a list of preferred plugins, and I know a lot of you do that, and Sometimes evaluating which ones are good and bad, first of all, you play with them in your sandbox. You don't play with them on any other of your live sites. Look at things like your download statistic. Look at the WordPress repository, and because there's some great information on there that will tell you other people's experience with it. Look hard at that. That's really, I lean heavily on that information if I haven't heard of it or the developer previously. Also, speaking of hearing of the developer, watch for recommendation in some of the better WordPress sites or blogs that are out there. And at the end, I'm going to, if you like, you can download. I maintain a list that I check every single day, and like I think I'm up to 49 in my Feedly list. And so instead of, and I know I'm missing some, but instead of, you know, shouting them all out, I actually provided the XML download so you can just upload if you use Feedly, if you are interested in starting following some WordPress blogs. But I read those, I just scan. I mean, it's not a huge thing. I just scan, I see the topics, I click on what's interesting. I find recommendations all the time for new plugins or excellent plugins, and if they're being reviewed and endorsed, chances are they're being continually developed, and they're done by reputable people. Here's an example of one we all know and love, talking about looking in the WordPress repository. If you're not familiar with this interface, I'm sure you are, but here's the things to look at. The compatibility standard, you know, how compatible is this with where I'm at currently? I always look at last updated. If you're looking at something that's a year or more, I mean, 2 years, actually, a warning comes up. So they need to be around. Whoever developed this needs to be around and care, because we're all marching forward. I also look at the number of downloads. That's a big indicator. That's not my only indicator, but if there's like 30 people who have tried this, I'm scared. And if I'm downloading it, I'm not installing it. I'm opening it and reading the code to see what I think of this. The ratings are really interesting to me. You can get a real sense. Also reading the reviews. That's kind of a thing that's becoming more and more prominent, where you can see. I don't only lean on that, because this isn't Amazon where there is hundreds and thousands of reviews of everything, but I do read what are people saying, and get a sense of that. So this is something that you want to evaluate. This, of course, is a great one. Okay, when to pay for premium, why to pay for premium. Features. There are things that premium can do because it's expensive to put your time out there and to do the development. And a lot of developers will say, listen, I'll give you this much, and that's as far as I can go. That I need compensation. And I think that's a legitimate business model. And if they are offering additional features that are necessary, remember, we're doing client work here. We're getting paid. Build it into your pricing and buy it, because there's no excuse for bad quality when there's good stuff out there. Also, same goes for support. Support is time consuming, and I will pay for good support, because if they provide me support real quick with an answer and me hacking at it for 2 days going, what the heck went wrong, I will pay you for a half an hour conversation or an email response. So it's worth it. We're doing client work and we're professionals, right? So we're thinking in terms of, I can afford this. Also, and a lot of the premium, and watch out for this, is your updates will only work for a year or 2 years or something like that. What happens? Are they still your client after a year? Do you have any residual with that client? Who's paying to renew your license so that the updates continue to happen? So when you're dealing with your client payment model, if it's a one-time off and done and you're never seeing that client again, and then their updates stop running in a year and then their site gets hacked, what's going to happen? So maybe we need to go to more of a retainer model with some clients that are using premium updates. That's just something to think about. And I've been revisiting a lot of our pricing to handle stuff like that, because I don't want client sites to ever get screwed up, even if they're not my client anymore. Also, look at the reputation of the developer when considering whether you should buy or not. Is this the only thing they've ever done? Are they out? Are they registered anywhere? Are they blogging anywhere? Are they around? Are they, some obscure country and you've never heard from them again? I'm not saying I buy stuff from overseas developers all the time. I'm not saying that that's a problem, but what's the accessibility? What's the reputation? And then what's the cost? Some cost is prohibitive, but it depends on the project. I buy premium when I need it. and I'm selective, but I'm not afraid to do it. And I used to be super cheap about that, but you get what you pay for. After a couple of good hacks, you're like, okay. So let's put that out there. As we wrap up, I want to hit on a couple of things, a couple of tools that we use, and this is not comprehensive. There's been some other excellent talks on tools and specific plugins and things like that. But here's a couple of things that we find to be very, very useful. One, for tasking communication, is Trello. If you don't have any sort of a project management workflow, there's some great other ones out there that are more formalized. Trello is like super like open-ended. You can make it do whatever. We love it. I was using it when it was just me. So it was like me Trelloing myself. It was awesome. Here's a version of one of our Trello boards. There's multiple ways to organize in it. I'm just going to show you kind of how we're doing it. This whole board is one particular client. Now I have other boards where each list is a particular client project, and we maintain like that. And those are smaller projects, so I can just look at them all on one board. Where do things stand? I even have a board where I maintain a demo list of every project has dev setup and content input and like all the major tasks that need to happen down there. And then whenever we start a new project, I just copy that list and do a duplicate, and that's my new client now. So at least all the default tasks are there. It's kind of like building a template for my project tasks. But this is all one client. And so we have different lists that cover different topics, different sites that we're doing, some marketing tasks we're doing for him, working on his intranet. He's got some convoluted thing. Maintenance and support requests that come through from him, and then new projects. And then we use the labeling for status. Now, Trello can be used where you do your lists for status. So doing, done type of a thing, to do, doing, and done. But we changed it up because we didn't want to do it that way. We actually started using labels. So green means in progress, red means I have a question, so then I can go in and filter all the reds and answer all the questions in 5 minutes. Actually red meant proof. I'm ready for you to proof this. Yellow means I have a question. And then when I approve it and we're good to go, blue means done. Thanks, great, done. And you can leave comments on there, back and forth. You can task. You see the little picture there. You can task a specific person to work on certain things. And then I've started doing this because this particular client gets billed by the hour. So we type in there, how much time did it take you to do it? And then I move a task over to my done list, ready for me to invoice. And then when I sit down to do invoices, I invoice that, I invoice that, I invoice that, all the way down the line. Archive them as I invoice them, boom, we're ready. What's next? That's how we're using it. I just wanted to throw up an example for y'all. It's a fun tool, it's free, it's great for teams, it's great for remote work. I know it's kind of hard to read, but you can kind of get the idea. Oh, you can also get notifications. There's apps, and you get emails and things like that. It's great. File sharing. You need some sort of system in place for file sharing. We're currently Dropbox people when it comes to our files, but we've started using Drive for a lot of our process. Remember I told you we need to document our process? We actually have a folder called our operations manual, and we're building out individual documents in there that outline, here's how we do this, here's how we do that, here's what you need to do with this. And every time it changes, it's a working document. We just go in and change it. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more how we use that in a minute. Have a system in place for how you do updates and backups. I've tried both of these, and I was speaking with Main WP today too, and there's several great tools out there. If you are managing multiple sites going forward, it's inefficient to log into each one of their dashboards every month, run updates, check things. It's just a lot. You got to maintain passwords and everything like that. So I would recommend getting some sort of tool. Currently we're using Infinite WP. It's got some pros and cons, but it's getting the job done mostly. Okay. Tech docs. That's a thing we came up with. We call them tech docs. How many know every client project starts and the client is sending you stuff? You're setting up maybe, okay, please integrate with my PayPal account. Here's my PayPal username and password. Okay, now you have your client's PayPal username and password. Okay, and now I want you to set up my emails. I need these 3 emails. Here's the emails names. Okay, now you got that. Then you set up their hosting account. Okay, now you're going to install the WordPress. You've got a database username. a database name, username, and password, and the local and the host name. Then you've got their FTP access if you're doing it that way. You've got, I mean, there's so much you maintain for a single client that's basically password information or proprietary information to that client. And then the client comes back to you in 6 months and says, oh, I forgot my PayPal password. And you're just like, do I look like the PayPal guru? You know, but you are, because you are their contact. So what we started making is tech docs, one for each client. And any kind of information that falls in that category, and we even have formatting, bold, and the way you say with the colon, everything. We have it, here's how you input into the tech doc. Anything that technically applies to the client, and that includes links to their Facebook page that you ended up providing an icon for. So then you maintain all that stuff in a single place, and Google Drive is great for this. We used Evernote for a while till we ran into some limitations and some security concerns. The thing is, I want to be able to share a specific tech doc with a specific employee and then unshare that and be able to manage that. I tried LastPass and Dashlane. We ran into some real problems because these aren't individual logins. This is all the information about a single client. And I wanted it clumped together. I didn't want it splintered everywhere. So this idea, however you do it, you need a tracking protocol to track what goes on with an individual project so that you can dig it up later in 6 months or a year. And you need naming conventions in your file structure and in the way that all this stuff is done. So I just want to throw that out there as an idea. The last thing I want to hit on real fast is this idea of inspiration. I say we're not starting from zero. Build yourself a process or a system that when you start a new project, it's predictable and you know where you're going. And I call that the curse of the blank slate. I don't do well with a blank slate. Maybe that means I'm not a true designer. I'm fine with that. I already told you how analytical I can be. I need a jumping off point when I start with a new project. I need an idea on a color scheme. So the client likes blue. Well, hello, blue. There's like a bazillion blues out there. So I love some of the online color scheme generators. There's one, Color Lovers, that I use all the time because people with beautiful design eyes have taken time to put together excellent color schemes. And so I will say, I want something in the blue category, and I'll just page through that stuff for a while until I find a beautiful color scheme that will work well on my site. And I save that puppy, and I add it to the client's information, and I say, okay, we're going to start here. This is just for inspiration. This isn't an exact process, but this is just for inspiration. This is where we're going to start. Because now I know if I add this color with that color, they're not going to clash. The exact shade I've picked out is good. I need that help. So maybe I just wanted to throw that out there. If the blank slate is hard for you, these are some tools you might want to consider. Also, inspiration sites. If I have a client and they're a local dentist, I will Google, and I'm in Jacksonville, I will Google local dentist in Los Angeles, because I want to know what people in a much bigger community are doing that's freaking awesome that I cannot copy but just get inspiration from. So I will do that, and I will keep a working document on that client that includes my ideas on color scheme and my ideas on other sites that are doing cool things. Learn how to do that. Learn how to spot cool stuff and keep it and apply it to a client. And then again, I want to mention, I have all these WordPress blogs that I follow. There's an example on my Feedly. You see all that? That's just my WordPress category, and it keeps going down. So I read this stuff all day, and I just look for inspiration. And keep it, store it. You can save. You can use Pocket, whatever you need to do. But if you have a hard time starting from zero, if projects are slow, if projects don't move along, maybe look at your process and see what can I put in place that moves things along a little bit quicker. So I appreciate your time. And
a couple quick ones. We're already at 45.
What site do you use for color inspiration?
I like Color Lovers, but it's color with a U like you're British. So Color Lovers. However you spell that.
Color what?
Lovers. But just Google color schemes. There's several great ones out there. Yeah, that's right.
You mentioned reviews like every 6 months or so of some of your processes. But are there any other types of reviews that you build into your processes? Like maybe a review after each project is done or something like that?
Yeah, we're more and more, now that I'm getting more and more of a team working with me, that is actually something like, okay, what worked well? Okay, this didn't work. Note to self, let's not do this. And we will go and change those process documents, or maybe the Trello starting points. If they weren't well documented, then we'll say, okay, we need to do it in a different order next time. So we do that kind of triage at the end. But as far as the whole total system, I'm always on the lookout for stuff, but I'm trying to be more formalized about when we implement new stuff. Thank you. I'm sorry?
What are some of the plugins that you install on the site?
Well, Yoast is one. I do a maintenance plugin during the development period. I think it's just called maintenance. It's by Fruitful Code. I kind of like the interface that it gives me. Other plugins that I start with. There's other ones that I prefer that I kind of keep in my back pocket if the project needs it, but I don't pre-install too many because some projects don't, and I don't want, again, stuff that's just lingering. Get with me later. I'll think of a few more.
You tend to install a security one and backup one out of the gate.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Infinite WP is one because I'm immediately cloning and doing stuff with inside that. So yeah, and backups.
Gravity forms.
Oh, and Gravity Forms. I haven't met a site that didn't need Gravity Forms, and yes, I pay for premium. So
What is Gravity Forms?
it's beautiful forms. So it's just anything that if you need a form, if you need a contact form or a application form or something on your website, just Google Gravity Forms. It's a good one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.